again. This is Fam Electric Ghost. I interview indie artists from around the world. We have Ivy Victoria.
Yes. Hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Problem. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for being on the show. So we're going to go through the questions that we sent you, and we're going to talk about your music. So, but we first like to ask, like, when did you first get into music as a a fan, or actually practicing, as a musician?
Well, before writing songs, I already started to write poetry and trying to come up with melodies. I recorded everything on the voice recorder on my phone, and I was around 12, I think. And when I was 14, I saved up some money and I bought my first guitar. I played every day, and after 3 months already wrote about 10 songs. So I was around 14 years old when I started making music.
So you've been working on music since you're for a while.
Yeah.
And so I find that when I talk to creative people or singer-songwriters, they tend to say they started, in their teens. Some of them started even before that.
Yeah.
So you're in the same, group of individuals I've been talking to for the last 2 years. So that's really interesting. So you're a guitarist, you're a singer-songwriter. So how long you've been working on your songs? Since you were 14, you were recording them. When did you realize that you're a fan of music, you wanted to write your own music, but when did you think that at that age you felt like you could write your own material? You felt like confident enough to write your own material. Do you know how that kind of came about? You just felt that?
Well, I don't know. I just always felt like music is something for me, and music made me feel like, I don't know, like happy, and that's why I actually started to write songs. It's just something that always was in my life. My mom was playing a piano all the time, so I don't know, just like a musical family or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, so you had people in your family that were musicians, so it didn't feel foreign to you to do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, some folks they're in households that have no musicians, and then people kind of look at musicians and say, "Why are you doing that? You should do sports, or you should do this, or you should do something else." But it's good to be in a household where you have other people who are in the arts and they encourage it. So your family was encouraged it?
Well, I don't really have a family. I just have my mom. So yeah, she always supported me. She thought that it was a good idea to concentrate on music. She supported me in learning how to play guitar, and just when I wrote my first song, she liked them. So I guess that's a thing that really kept me going, and that's why I'm still making music.
Well, I think it's important to have that support. People always say, I'm in the U.S. and there tends to be less of a focus on the arts and more focus on sports.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a big fight to actually get support.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's good to have somebody in your corner.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in your family. If it's a parent, that's even better. Some people just have a music teacher or a mentor, but it's good that you had your mom to do that. Mm-hmm. So you realized early you had a talent. You're a guitar player. You're a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Who are your influences in terms of if you were gonna tell somebody who you sound like or who you were inspired by? Could you maybe name some people that influenced you or your reference points in your music?
Well, when I was a teenager, I listened a lot of 90s alternative music, just rock music, grunge. And one of my biggest influences was Elliott Smith. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, Elliott Smith is a great singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
A famous, great kind of tragic story, but a great kind of emo alternative college radio type of songwriter.
Yeah, so yeah, I just love the vibe of sadness mixed with happiness in his music. And if I'm able to give the same feeling to my listeners, then it makes me kind of happy. Like it makes me feel like I achieved something. So
Yeah, I do hear. I hear the Elliott Smith influence. I hear a little Lana Del Rey, because you have your kind of
yeah,
movie theme,
yeah,
cinematic vibe, where she does very atmospheric, cinematic soundscapes, and I kind of hear that in your music as well. Um,
yeah. She's also a big thing in my life, but I had a really sad time in my life when I started to listen to her. So yeah, I guess I just forgot about her a bit now, but like
yeah,
before, yeah,
yeah, I hear the inspiration. It's like the thing about musicians, we kind of soak up our reference points.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not that we're some people, it's not that you're doing a Xerox or you're copying. You can hear, as you talk to different individual musicians, and there's a lot of people that they're inspired by Bob Dylan, but they don't sound like Bob Dylan. You
hmm
know, or they like Springsteen, but they don't sound like Springsteen. They kind of understand it, maybe hear pieces of it. But I do hear Lana Del Rey influence,
yeah,
and Elliott Smith influence, and as well as some maybe people you might not know. I hear a little Juliana Hatfield. She came from a band, the Blake Babies, and she's an independent, like indie female guitar player, singer songwriter from that period,
mm.
and Liz Phair as well.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, they're kind of like they're very alternative college radio from the '90s,
Yeah,
in America. Maybe didn't get as big outside America, but yeah, they're singer songwriters, independent on indie label. Strong female representation of the same kind of thing Elliott Smith was doing.
yeah.
They did, and so they're interesting that you have some of that. You never heard of them, but I hear it. So some people would get into tap into that sound, and that vibe, and I can hear that vibe, which is cool.
I will check them out because that's interesting.
So you've been, if you were going to describe your style or your genre, we just kind of named some influences, but if somebody asked you, like a record executive asked you, well, we're going to package your product, we're going to put your record out, what genre should we say you're in? What would you say to that person that's trying to market you?
I guess I'm more like indie pop or something like that. Dream pop, I
Dream
guess.
pop, yeah, dream pop. I think it sounds like, I think that's kind of really encapsulates it. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I like mixing like different genres together, and that's why it's difficult for me to like
Yeah, you can just
understand.
say like alternative, which kind
Yeah,
of like is kind of passe today because like everybody's alternative, and
yeah,
people will say like indie rock or like post folk music. But
hmm
because you have the guitar, but you also sounds or the background like electronic sounds, so
yeah,
you're not synthwave, you're not trance, you're not those type of things, but you're mixing some of the synth stuff. I'm a synth player, I'm a keyboardist,
yeah.
and so I can hear it, but I know your guitar is like up in front, what you're doing, and so it's a mixture of. So a dream pop, I think, really fits it because it does include synth and guitar.
Okay, so now I know what my genre is.
Well, that's my opinion. Everybody, like your manager, or your agents in the future might find a different way to market. You never know where they want to put you.
hmm Yeah.
But so when you we're talking about workflow process, I remember you asked me. It's kind of more like when musicians kind of put together their projects. There's
hmm
all kinds of tools like digital audio workstations, DAWs. Some people use Ableton, or use Pro Tools, or they use different Cubase, different things. But I think you
hmm
told me, yeah, you use a GarageBand, right?
Yeah, now I'm doing everything on GarageBand because it's pretty easy and I'm not that smart to do something difficult. So yeah, but before, when I was around 14, I had a computer and I tried to make music with Cubase, but it was too difficult for me. So I gave up. So yeah.
So the thing, like I had originally done some things in and with that tool set. But I tend to I come from a background of using like hardware. So I started like on 4-track recorders, 8 tracks,
Mm-hmm.
like physical machines. Because I date myself, I'm in my 50s. So musicians back then, we didn't have computers and we didn't have smartphones. The only way you could put something down is like on a Fosdick or a Tascam 4-track recorder. They
Yeah.
actually use like cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was like the DAWs sometimes are a little too complicated, or they have too many options. There's too much stuff going on. So I use like the modern day version of a 4-track. I use hardware digital recorders,
Yeah.
which allow you to just like go into a Zoom. I have a Zoom R24, and I just take all my synths, which I use modes and all kinds of analog synths, and it's easier to capture them on a device where you can just take a 1/4 inch line and plug it in
Mm-hmm.
and then record track by track. So I understand what you're saying when you're using GarageBand, and it allows me to kind of just go and track it, and
Yeah.
just I can just easily take my synths as I hear them, and they don't get compressed, and I don't have to fool around with the sound. I get what I hear is what I get.
Yeah.
So do you like the idea when you're recording that what you hear is what you actually record? You don't have a problem with trying to like deal with compression or sound control and all the other things. You just want to hear what's in your head, and you don't want to have to retranslate it.
I actually am pretty happy about the GarageBand program because that has literally everything for like beginning musicians to make a song, and that's pretty easy. And I think even famous people, like famous musicians, also use it.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I mean, like the Gorillas, they
yeah,
used it on an iPad to do a full album.
yeah. I mean,
And a lot of big bands. I mean, big name bands. David Albarn. We would Blur, Gorillaz is a big guy, big artist, and you can use whatever tool you want. It's the kind of whatever makes services the song.
so yeah, I get the feeling that I get the same thing as I had in my head when I make music. So
Yeah,
that,
you like that. You don't have to worry about like, oh wow, that didn't really come out the way I heard it. And
yes,
then
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's always been a frustration with some musicians. Like even when the DAWs first appeared, you would go and put something into the DAW, and in the early DAWs, you had to wait like an hour
Yeah.
for it to render, and then when you heard it didn't sound like what you recorded.
Yeah, when I
You
tried
spend like hours trying to fix it.
yeah, when I tried working on Cubase, it was really difficult for me because you just have to get like samples from the internet then, and then you get the wrong ones, and then it just doesn't sound right, and then you have to do all the stuff, and you just don't find the right sound. So that's
Yeah.
that's the best program you can have right now, in my opinion. So
So do you integrate your guitar into GarageBand? Do you actually play your guitar into it through an interface?
before I did, but now I'm not doing that anymore because
You're just using the tool itself to do the parts.
yeah, I just do it on the program because I don't know, it just gives me more control, I guess, even
Hmm.
though it sounds a bit weird because if you play guitar, it should give you more control, but I don't know, it's more
Yeah.
comfortable for me. So
Well, it's working for your songs right now. I've been listening to what's on Spotify,
yeah.
and I've been listening. Your latest single, is that "Never Forget"? Is that
Hmm.
the latest track?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very well produced. So do you do everything on GarageBand and then send it to a recording engineer, or do you do everything yourself?
I don't have the opportunity to have a recording engineer to do my stuff, so I do everything myself. But I enjoy the work. I mean, it gives me the feeling of control, and
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, I
Well, you did an awesome job. I mean, you can use. I've heard people use GarageBand and they still have to go to a recording engineer to get it right. And your mix is very good. It's so that you've got a really good skill set as a producer, not just a singer songwriter. You're a producer.
yeah, I am because I have to be. Otherwise, no one will do that for me. So I just learn it. But I like the process of making stuff. I just like to make beats sometimes.
Mhm.
yeah, I enjoy it. So
So that's interesting because there are musicians that are guitar players, they're guitar, they're vocalists, but they don't want to go and take on the task of having to do the beat or having to do a bass line or having to do the sense. So they'll go to a producer, they'll go to a recording engineer, or they'll get a band. But I'm like you, I'm a control person,
hmm
and so like it comes to my art, I do like all the parts, I do all the production, just like what you're doing, and
yeah,
so I appreciate that kind of like, my heroes were people like Prince,
yeah,
who did the same thing. Prince, well, I grew up, he was 17 when he first started, and the story was, they told him they could get the producer from Earth, Wind and Fire to produce his first record, and Warner Brothers thought he would be very impressed and say, yeah. He said, no, I'm going to do it myself.
yeah,
And, and I think that if you think about that, the really innovative artists like Hendrix,
hmm
Prince, some of the big artists, they produce themselves because if you're an artist and you have that vision and you want to have the cohesive sound, a
hmm
lot of times the only way you can get that cohesive sound is to be in control of it. So I totally get that.
yeah. I just like the feeling. I'm even afraid, like in future, I don't know if I will get there. If I will reach my dream, then it's probably I will have to work with other people. But I just love making music way too much. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy that. Like it gives me like happiness that I need from my life. So I don't know.
It is hard to let go. I mean, in some situations, I've worked with bands, right? And so when you get into a band and there's like three other people,
hmm
then I was like a chief songwriter for a band when I was in my 20s, and so I would bring the demo, and then I knew like the bass player was going to change my bass line, but he's a bass player. So if I give him a bass line that I wrote on my keyboard, he's going to probably play it better on the bass. And
hmm
so he's probably going to add something to it. So I kind of looked at it as, okay, well, once I get into a band, the drummer's going to take my beat from an 808 and he's going to make it a real beat because he's a drummer, right? So
Yeah.
he's going to turn it into something that I couldn't do. And so then you kind of just, what happens is everything gets embellished. People who are like better at certain skills are just going to take it and bring their thing to it. So when you work with a unit like that, it becomes like a team.
hmm
And so then that tends to be like, okay, you have to kind of compromise and you have to be willing to open it up. And for years, I've been in bands, but like I'm by myself again because I still, when it comes down to the end of the day, I have this artistic vision that only like seems I can do it. That if I work with other people, it comes out as a different thing. But if I
Yeah.
want to do like ghost stuff, it has to be me. And so I think when you get into your career, when you work with other people, it's always like kind of compromise unless they really, it becomes something where, wow, that's better than what I could do.
Yeah.
Then usually it ends up being like the great experience. Like if you can link up with people, whether it's a band or a producer, and suddenly it's better than what you could have envisioned and you feel good about it, then that's cool. It's always
Mhm.
kind of like not so great if it's a compromise and you do it, but you still didn't feel good about it, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I guess I just haven't met people like that.
Yeah, it depends on like where you go in the world as an artist. You're
hmm
kind of up and coming. You're starting. You never know who you're going to collaborate with. You never know who's going to open a door or get you there. It's always kind of like as an artist, sometimes you have to kind of put your ego in the back corner
Yeah, yeah,
in order to move, and it's hard because like if you're somebody that has a vision, some
hmm
people don't have as much of a vision, and so they're willing to be molded, and then some people have a very distinct vision, and so it's hard to balance that. But when it is kind of like you find it or you don't find it.
yeah,
Yeah. In today's world, you can continue to do what you're doing for years. I've been doing this kind of bedroom producing since I was 17. I'm in my 50s.
yeah,
So it's like you don't have to stop doing it. You can keep on doing it however you want. It just depends on where the world brings you. Um, so that kind of gets to, have you have you played live with this project? I know in the Corona maybe you haven't been able to do it, but before that, were you able to do any of this, any of your work live, or are you primarily not a live musician?
I was actually performing live before when I was around 17 years old, I guess. I sang in few bars, but the people didn't really care about the music. It was just about like going out, like I don't know, just drinking alcohol and not
Yeah, yeah,
listening
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, bars are
So
hard to get a good audience, and
yeah, so I just gave up on that, and I thought like, yeah,
you
it's
have to kind of be a cover band to really hit it in the
yeah,
bars, and it's
that's
hard to do your own material in that scene.
yeah,
But
that's what people told me too, but I just don't like to do covers as much.
yeah, I mean, if you're a singer songwriter, it kind of goes back to it. I've talked to a lot of people. Most of the people I interview are
Mhm.
people that like refuse to do covers.
I don't refuse to do covers. I just
Well, I guess I mean what I mean is they have their own vision,
mhm,
and they're not a wedding band. You know, they're not a cover band. They have their own material. Not that they won't play somebody else's song, but most of the songs they write are their own. Um,
mhm,
and I think a lot of times, like in certain places, like you can't, like where I live in New England, I live in New Hampshire.
mhm,
I cannot really play anywhere in New Hampshire my own material. But if I
yeah,
go to Boston or I go to New York City, then I can play my own material because the audiences there are more willing to listen to that.
yeah,
But where I live in this little corner of New England, I can't really play my own material anywhere around here. So I can understand certain places that just not don't really support it.
mhm, yeah. That's
So
the
it sounds like,
reality.
yeah. So I mean, that's like what happened to you, right? When you tried to go into the bar scene, it didn't really click right.
I just did it for experience, I guess, because that was just interesting to like perform in front of people, not in front of your computer. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
do you miss it? Because I think a lot of people, like when I talk to bands, like under coronavirus, I talk to a lot of working bands, right? And they have a hard time doing like online
Um,
performance because they feel they can't get the audience feedback. And some musicians are really dependent on getting audience feedback to do a good live performance. If they just have to be in front of a computer or a camera, they can't get the right vibe. They're not getting enough feedback from human beings. And so they're not comfortable doing it because they don't really know how well they're doing because they can't read the audience.
yeah.
So you find that, have you tried to do like online performance, like on and stuff that you feel good about it, or do you say, well, I'd rather just record it than doing that because I don't know how it feels?
No, I never actually did the live performance. I don't know why. Maybe I have to try that out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just a bit introverted, I guess. Um, Still learning how to talk to my followers, to my people who
Mm-hmm.
listen to me. So yeah.
But I think it's really I would just make a suggestion as an indie artist. It's kind of cool to do like an unplugged, like acoustic performance on your guitar of one of your songs. If you went on Facebook Live and you played, like one of your tracks, like if you played your latest track, like Never Forget, and you did like an acoustic version on Facebook with your phone, right, on a
Mhm.
tripod.
Yeah.
That sometimes fans really can appreciate that because it's different than what's on your single. It kind of gives like an intimate musical experience to your fans. And if
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's a cool thing. And a lot of people under Corona, at least in the States, a lot of people are doing that in order to keep their fan base. So it would be cool, and I would love to hear it. um,
Yeah, I will do that one day
yeah, I
soon.
mean, whenever you get the gumption to do it, you think you got the right way to do it. But it is a cool way of keeping your fan base engaged in this time since we can't get to the venues, and we can't do the shows. So
Mm.
that's another question. As a musician, I found you on the streaming services. I found you out there, through Instagram, and then I found your link tree, and then I could find you on like all the streaming services. So what's your opinion as a new artist in the way that you're able to get your music out? How what do you feel about the way things are today in the music industry?
I guess I don't know a lot of things because I find it really difficult to get new people to listen to me, and I'm reading a lot about that, and then I'm like looking at YouTube videos, and I'm just like researching all the things that I can to just, I don't know, to just get this information, but still it's a bit difficult right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what the music industry in general, has for musicians has always been about, live performance is how you
Hmm.
get word of mouth. How you get like music critics to write you up. Like if I go to New York City, then a music person from a music magazine might be at one of the clubs and they write about you in a blog, and then you get into a magazine and you get into a newspaper, and then that's how you build your buzz, right? And then from
Yeah.
there you do your YouTube video, or you go on SoundCloud. There's a bunch of things you have to kind of do to get that buzz, right? And
Hmm.
if you get big enough buzz, then the agent might come to you, and then then the booking agent finds you and they start booking you into shows and you start doing the circuit. And in the Corona time, and like, well, now the legs of that are kind of taken out. You can't go do that show
Hmm.
in New York, so the music critic doesn't get to see you. and
Yeah.
and usually you had to do that before they even got on YouTube, so but now you kind of have to try to get it on YouTube, and like everybody's putting stuff on YouTube, so it's hard, but it's still, you can engage your fans on things like Facebook Live and Twitch, and all these different platforms. And I think it's this kind of like, if you do it, people come. If you go and do it, then suddenly you'll see, there's 3,000 fans suddenly show up. And if you
Yeah.
do it consistently, then they'll keep on showing up. And then you kind of, send them to your Spotify, send them to your Apple. And it's kind of like what has to happen, but you have to kind of keep them engaged. So
Hmm.
it seems, what I've been reading, because I do a lot of influence marketing on the side, there's a lot of bands, that used to be, oh, you only do one album a year. In this kind of market for musicians, doing a song like every month is not a bad thing. It's actually encouraged for you to get as much material out as you can to get
Yeah.
people engaged. It's not that you like just hold off a record because you're not with a label.
Hmm.
Labels used to kind of market you like one project at a time, and they one album, you wait 2 years because you tour for 2 years, and you do another album after 2 years. But in this new market, people run singles. Some people run singles every week. So it's kind of like you got to create a lot of content, and you got to create as much content and buzz as you can. So it's a different type of world compared to when I first started,
Yeah.
back in the 80s. But yeah, there's some things about it, like if you just love doing what you do as a musician, you just keep on perfecting your craft, and then people will tend to find you if you believe in yourself. That's
Yeah.
really, that seems to be the main thing.
You're absolutely right. That's just like the thing with me. I'm really sensitive about the things I do. I don't know. It's a bad thing in this industry because it's difficult to get people. But I just have a lot of like up and downs. Like, if you know what I mean, like the
Oh yeah.
days. Yeah.
Roy Elliott Smith. I mean, the fact that you kind of name checked Elliott Smith, I kind of get that, and I hear it in your music. But I mean, like, your music can be very cathartic. I've kind of been, I've always kind of dived into like the kind of melancholy in music.
Hmm.
I used to be I still am a big fan of the Carpenters.
Yeah.
And Karen Carpenter's voice is like the epitome of melancholy.
Yeah.
It just represents that sadness, even though it's so beautiful. It's just, every time you hear her voice, it's like it represents like the same kind of thing that Elliott Smith represents. It's just this, even though she was singing these like songs that were supposed to be very positive, you kind of heard this sadness in her voice,
Hmm.
and it's just
Yeah.
like, it just is that it's there, it's just there. And I've always tried to like try to capture that feeling, which I think it's like an artistic choice, but sometimes you kind of dive into those feelings, blue. I mean, that's what jazz and
Hmm.
blues is all about, is usually diving into that. is you find
Yeah.
a way to represent that. And artists, that's what we do. We can pull our pain and turn it into art.
Yes. Well, that's what I like about music, but the only thing that is difficult for me is actually like doing the work for promoting myself and everything because I'm like I don't know, I just give all my energy for the song and then I'm like, I am a bit afraid that people won't like it or I don't know, just
Well,
always
it's
this.
hard. Yeah, sometimes that's where you do need. Sometimes you need to find like an agent or a
Mhm,
marketing person, or find a way to get it into a get into a collective. Like
yeah.
the cool thing is some environments, like I don't know where it's like where you are in Belgium, but like
Hmm.
if you get to go to Boston or New York City, there's such a big musical environment, right?
Yes.
So you can get into New York and you get into the club scene there, and there's all these bands that are doing what you're doing, and so you can make friends and make connections, and then suddenly you're working with that band, helping them do something, right?
Hmm.
And that's usually the connections in with between musicians kind of push you forward. Like if you go and say, well, I'll guest vocals on this other artist album,
Yeah.
or I'll go and do some production for this other artist because I like them, and you go and approach them, then suddenly people start seeing your name on
Mm.
other things other than your own work, and you can kind of build up like people start to find out about you because they start seeing your name and they start hearing you, and the musicians start talking about you as well. So a lot of times, sometimes even if you can build up a relationship with other musicians by
Yeah.
working with them, then you can kind of build your audience.
Hmm. I made a lot of friends, musicians on Instagram, so I'm pretty happy about that. Like really nice people, and also makes me feel like I'm not alone in this journey, you know. So that's a good thing about internet and social media. That's really something that like gives me motivation. But yeah.
So, do you think you're gonna, in the musicians you've linked up with, have you had an opportunity to like, collaborate with any of them yet?
At the moment, I am doing a collab with someone,
Cool.
and that sounds pretty nice. I like it. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be out in 1 or 2 weeks, something like that.
See, that's how you get yourself moving forward. The more you do that,
Yeah.
the more that your name will get out there, and the more that other musicians find out about you. And in the way the musician world is like if a band works with you and then they get a tour, and then you work with them, then sometimes you get to be the guest on their tour, and
Hmm.
then other people see you, and then they say, "Oh, I want you on my tour," and then boom, that's how it works. And so yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's cool that you reached out and you're doing that. That's like the first step to really get out there.
Hmm. Connections.
Yeah, the connections within, even if you don't have a label, even if you don't have like an agent, if you can link directly with other artists, it can have the
Yeah.
same effect.
Yeah.
and,
That's
and
that's
then
nice.
eventually, like maybe their booking agent finds about you, or their agent, or their connections, then you can kind of piggyback on other people who've actually made those connections. And so yeah, it's weird. It just kind of keeps on cascading
Hmm. Yeah.
once you do it. So I'm looking forward to that project. Like, let me know when that comes out, and I can kind of push it on
I
my
will let
social
you know.
media.
Thank you.
um, so the type of collaboration, since you're doing one, is it in the same genre that you're in, or are you doing something in a different genre?
It's similar to what I am doing, but it sounds dream pop. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the same, I guess.
That's cool. Have you
Yeah,
thought of maybe doing vocals in a genre that maybe is not like example? What if you a hip hop band like approached you and said they wanted a vocal for a sample? Would you do something like that, or it's
I
something like
guess I would. I would try. I mean, I like doing new things. I like trying new things, so I guess I would.
yeah, 'cause I think that's what a lot of people today. What I find is it used to be like rock and roll is like heavy metal guys. When I grew up, it was like heavy metal was a big thing,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
they were like, I'm not doing any soul, I'm not doing any hip hop, I'm not doing, it's all heavy metal, that's it. And that's
Hmm.
cool, But in today's world, it seems like a lot of bands, a lot of artists, they're doing cross genre. You know, you'll get rock and rollers working with hip hop guys, you get jazz guys working with, country music guys. People are just crossing lines, which I think is better for music when people kind of cross pollinate each other's genre.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when people are crossing the new styles, like to get a new sound. So I'm I'm really open to that. I do it myself, so I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think that's cool. I think it's good to have an open mind as a musician, especially when you're trying to build your own brand. A lot of us, regardless of what we're doing, we're not marketing people, but when you're an artist, like you're artist, that is your brand. Like
yeah,
so it's like how you get out there and refine your marketing campaign. That a lot of times we, as artists, we're like, well, I don't have time for that. I'm gonna spend more time working on my art. And yeah, as artists, we're probably going to spend 98% of our time writing the song,
yeah.
not doing the marketing campaign.
Hmm.
but if we're indie artists, we kind of have to maybe knock that down from 98 to down to 95 and spend like 5% on the marketing to kind of get out there.
Yeah,
And that's always hard because like I have a hard time sometimes, like, well, should I go and do a live concert, or should I spend 2 days in the studio just writing the song? And then I'll
hmm,
say, well, really, I got to engage my fans, so I better go do that. And
yeah,
my first inclination is I'd rather just be in the studio. But then the next thing in my head says, well, I got to engage my fan base, so I better stay in touch with them. So I should probably do that.
yeah,
I think as you get older, you're like, oh, I better engage or not engage. Depends on how big you get. Like the bigger you get, like maybe you don't have to engage as much.
yeah. That's my problem. Like, I can't find the right balance in this, but I'm working on that. I'm trying my best to like find the right way for myself.
Well, I
I
think
guess.
it's just hopefully this podcast will get more people to be aware of your music, and
I hope so.
so like let's talk about Never Forget. Now that's your latest single, and can you kind of talk about, as a songwriter, what how did this song come to be? What were you trying to convey? Because your audience will kind of hear your lyrics and they kind of picture their own vision. But as the person that wrote the song, what is your vision for that song?
Well, I wrote this song 1 year ago. It was summertime, and I had a difficult time in my life, and I don't know, I just had I don't know, a bit of a breakup, I guess, and I felt a bit um, alone after so many years being happy. And I just wrote that song
Oh, so,
because,
yeah, that's I think a lot of singer songwriters, like I said, they take the pain in their life and they turn it into art. So that sounds like Never Forget. You took like an experience that was like a painful experience
hmm,
and you turned it into art. And I think that's one of the advantage of being a singer songwriter, or even like a painter. They'll take pain and turn it into a painting.
yeah,
A method actor will take like the pain and angst in their life and they'll turn it into a performance. And
hmm,
musicians do the same thing. It's kind of a combination of
yeah,
taking those feelings and turn them into sonic art. And then a lot of musicians, if they do it right, they tell a story that's universal and everybody can kind of understand. And I think Never Forget is kind of one of those universal things that you're representing like that pain in your life, and then people who listen to it can kind of have a mind picture of an experience that's similar and identify.
It
So
was,
yeah,
yeah. It was difficult for me to release this song because I felt too connected with that, which is not good when you make music because you gotta put it up on the internet, show people, let them enjoy it. But I just had like a difficult time with that song because
yeah,
that felt too
yeah.
personal.
So yeah, I guess that's always the problem. Sometimes, like
Hmm.
as a singer songwriter, you put that work out there, and if it's so close to you, sometimes artists will use different techniques to kind of create characters in their songs and tell a story and act like, well, that's not really my story. It's like somebody else, right? But usually it's them.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen is famous for making all these characters, right? But a lot of times the character is representing something that he actually happened to him, but he created this kind of Americana character that went through some kind of thing. But it really, the experience of that character comes from him. But he turns it like a writer into a character in a novel. But sometimes, if you're an artist and you're like, well, okay, I'm gonna actually relay something that happened to me, then it becomes an issue where it's like, is that too close, to what really I feel, and then I don't have any cover. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To,
Yeah.
so as you get older, sometimes the songwriters start to create the other version of themselves, or they take character studies and they actually even put names of other people, characters they create, and make the song about that character. And so they can kind of separate it. Maybe they tell like a partial part of the story and then make the other part of the story not exactly what happened, to kind of keep it away from them, um, but still be inspired by it. But you find a way to kind of protect yourself, by opening it up. But I think a lot of artists like Elliott Smith, he just kind of put it out there, and Dylan,
Yeah.
a lot of songs are real personal, and so Carole King, very personal. Some of the people I name check, like Liz Phair and Juliana Hatfield, a lot of the songs are totally about things that happen to them.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of like the price you pay as an artist. But I think the fans benefit, from a songwriter. If you think about it, like you write a song like Never Forget, and it's about you, it's personal, you really feel it.
Hmm.
Your fans can really, they feel that you're authentic. You know what I mean? Your fan base will feel like, well, this is an authentic art. This isn't some songwriter on Madison Avenue
Yeah.
writing something that's just some catchy, like just
Hmm.
some kind of just on a grid. It's just some beat. it's
Yeah.
it's more than that. It's something that's actually, you gave a piece of yourself, and so it's actually kind of precious. It's like it's art. And
Yeah.
that's why I love talking to singer songwriters, because of what you did. I mean, you feel, you kind of think about it like, well, did I reveal too much, or it's kind of painful, or it's hard to do. That becomes like very precious to the audience. you know
Well, I hope that people actually enjoyed that. I mean, that's everything what I need
yeah, what I
them.
enjoyed it, because I'm into that type of songwriting.
Well, that's a big compliment for me because, yeah, I mean, it gives me a lot of inspiration when people say that to me. I sometimes even like read it over and over, and I just start crying because that's just unbelievable that some people give me their time and just listen to my songs. That's beautiful.
Well,
You
I love to support people who are doing this, because in our industry, there's a lot of people, for different reasons they get into it, and they're not doing it from the heart. They're kind of doing it from other places, and I've always been drawn to people who are kind of have that honesty. That's why I was really into Kurt Cobain, because
know?
what he was doing was, it's like everything was so really raw. It's kind of like the punk Elliott Smith. It's very punk aesthetic, but it had a lot of feeling. There was a lot of pain in what he was doing, and I think when people see an artist that does that, it just really inspires them. And I just will always be drawn to people who give that much into their work.
I was actually a very big fan of Kurt Cobain. Also like Elliott Smith, but I guess it was like a very difficult time for me, and then I just forgot about it, because when I listen to music, I always have associations with the songs, and then when it's a bad time in my life, I just don't like to hear it again.
You drop. Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me.
Yeah.
for a long time after Prince, passed away, I was one of the. I'm a super big Prince fan, but when he
Hmm.
passed away, it was like so painful. I couldn't listen to his music for like 2 years.
Yeah.
It was
I
just hard for me to listen to it without getting kind of caught up in the emotions. Cause when you lose, I can imagine like Nirvana fans probably felt like that.
Mhm.
When he died, it's hard. Um, so sometimes like something can happen and it makes you like, oh, I can't hear that song
I get that.
again. Yeah, same thing with Karen Carpenter. I mean, I love the Carpenters, but sometimes I can't listen to them, or I'll be crying all night.
Yeah, that
you
gives you.
know,
Yeah.
it's just too deep. You can't get into it. But I appreciate it, and you
Hmm.
go back to it when you can, um, or when it feels like you can't open up to that again.
Hmm.
But so you're working on that new release that's coming, the collaboration. Are you
Yeah.
working on any other music besides what you've had out there for 2020? Do you have other things besides the collaboration? Do you have another project or?
Currently, I am making my first album, so that's pretty exciting. I enjoy the process. I like it too much, so hopefully people will like it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So what's the target date for that?
I guess it's around September, like beginning of September.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I love to have artists come back on the show all the time. If you've listened to our podcast, we've had guests come on multiple times, especially when they have projects.
Yeah, I
So
saw that.
yeah,
Hmm.
so if you've got when your album is ready to come out, we could actually do like an album release show where we could kind of talk about the project and talk about the songs, and kind
That
of
would be great.
yeah,
Yeah,
give it a little lift.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, we love to do that because we think people need to support indie artists especially, because there's a lot of people out there that will go and say, oh, even for what we're doing right now, there are people who say you got to pay them like $100, $200 to get on a podcast, and we were like very against that. We're kind of like we came from like college radio. I used to be like a radio DJ at my college,
Yeah,
and
you're
I used to interview bands, and I wouldn't charge them. I'd say, I just want to talk to you because I think I like your music.
you're doing like a really big thing for artists. Like you're helping them out a lot, as I see, like on your interviews with people. It's just nice that you're doing that.
Well, I just think that you pay it forward because you know I don't look for anything other than I like the experience of learning about other people's music, and I'm a musician, right? So every time I approach an artist for an interview, I get to listen to all this music,
Hmm.
and then as a musician, I get inspired by and I talk to people from multiple genres. So if now I'm like, oh wow, I'm listening to kind of like dream pop. You're doing this
Yeah.
dream pop, and then I was like, well, wow, I maybe I should take some dream pop elements and put it into my work. So
Yeah.
I just kind of look at it as it's a payday for me, in that every time I get to hear another musician, I get inspired to maybe try something different.
Hmm.
And that's the payday for me. And then the fact that I can build a relationship with other musicians, get them to come on the show again, get them to talk to other people. Then I might get another guest because somebody in your circle, hears that I interviewed you. So it just keeps the whole thing going. It's all good because we're building a community. In my opinion, like indie artists, we all need to do these collective things, uh,
Of course.
to
Yeah.
build ourselves up so that people find out about your work.
Yeah. That's
If people find out about you, then they find out about me, and then they find out about the person I interviewed last week, and then it just builds our whole indie kind of nation of this like worldwide group of indie artists that are just trying to get our work out there.
that's a nice thing to do. That's a nice purpose in life, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it keeps me from just being in the studio.
Yeah.
Because I'll be at my home studio and I'd just be writing, and then I said, you know what, I should do something else,
Hmm.
and I found this other way of engaging my fans, and it's interesting. We went from being like 3,000 listens to 24,000 listens worldwide. And then we got picked up. Spotify actually bought Anchor out, and now we're part of Spotify.
That's really cool.
So it's pretty cool that something that I was, not looking to do any, any kind of monetary benefit, and we're actually sponsored. So I actually get paid by play, like a radio.
Well, that's a dream job.
So it's just something that, I can just sit and interview people, and then it just get passive money coming in. And the musicians, like, we need things like this to help us,
Yeah.
because as a musician, like, well, how are you going to earn? Well, podcasting is a really cool way to get out there, because it gets you to a worldwide audience, and
Yeah.
and then you get your name out there, and in a different platform. Just like in music, I mean, today, a lot of musicians, they have to do sync licensing, which means they get their song on a TV show or a radio, advertisement, in movies and video games. That's how musicians are making money. We actually, musicians make more money from licensing their music to be in, advertising, TV, movies, video games, than we make any other way.
That's true.
And so, getting your name out there, what happens is you can end up getting to influence marketing as a musician. People find out about you, and then suddenly somebody says, "Hey, do you want to be an influencer? So will you go and wear a T-shirt when you play, from this brand?" And so when you do your video and you show up on Instagram and you wear that shirt, then suddenly you get paid. So you make more money doing stuff like that, which is like, okay, well, that's not what I was in for, but if that's how it's gonna, be, then I can use that to buy more equipment.
That's a nice plus. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you, as a musician, you should be always wide open for that. I mean, some people are like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," but if you find ways to do that, it's kind of cool. And we see a lot of influencers on Instagram. They're selling vitamins, they're selling, mineral water or whatever. But that's how you make it.
I am open for everything, to be honest.
Yeah. So hopefully, this will get out there, and some company will say, "Hey, do you want to wear this cap? Do you want to wear
Of
this?
course.
Do you want to, you wear this, drink this energy drink, on your posting, and show that you drink it before you write your song?" It's like,
Of course. Yeah.
that's how you can get out there. We're happy that you came on the show, Ivy, and this is going to come out within an hour on 11 podcast platforms, including Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, Radio Public, Overcast, and Anchor itself. All these links will be out there. We will send you the Anchor FM link. We will send you the Spotify and the Apple link. The other ones are just out there, but we'll send you that so you can cross promote. And we will also promote on our Instagram channels and our Facebook channels. And it's cool. One cool thing, we do have this relationship with Spotify, where the Spotify version of the podcast can be linked to our Instagram. And so when we put a highlight out there, it'll click right to this episode. And
That's
so we will share that story, and it will allow people to go into Instagram and directly click on it, and it'll go right to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
So that will help push people into the interview and get people to know your work. And your hyperlinks will also be on this. So we're going to put your Spotify link and your Linktree link and your Instagram link.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. We look forward to your new album in September. So tell us before it's maybe 2 weeks before it comes out, and we can set something up.
Of course. All right. Nice.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day too. Bye.
It's nighttime there, right?
No, it's just evening. I'm not
evening?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, it's not too late, so they can keep you up too late. So thank you.
Thank you.
You have a great
Bye.